And this is where the story begins. For a few people began to gather around the young sage, seeking his guidance. Perhaps it was simply the fulfillment of bodily karma, or the motiveless compassion that reacted to the desire for guidance on the part of those sincere seekers. But something seemed to draw him back to a fuller bodily life. Slowly, seekers would approach him to have a doubt cleared, or to simply sit in his peaceful presence. Shiva Prakasham Pillai was one of the early visitors who became captivated by the young sage. The teachings on self-inquiry as given to Shiva Prakasham Pillai became the key message of the Maharshi. The great Sanskrit scholar and ascetic Vasishtha Ganapati Muni had mastered a broad range of scriptures, disciplines, and meditation practices. Feeling frustrated that he had not progressed further in experience, Ganapati remembered the young sage living on the hill and approached him with great emotion, desiring to know the true meaning of tapas, or spiritual practice. The young sage gazed at him silently for a while, and then replied, "If one watches whence the notion I arises, the mind is absorbed into that. That is tapas. When a mantra is repeated, if one watches the source from which the mantra sound is produced, the mind is absorbed in that. That is tapas." This response on the part of the young ascetic filled Ganapati Muni with joy, and he declared that Venkataraman should now be known as Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi.
Call it by any name, God, self, the heart, or the seat of consciousness. It is all the same. The point to be grasped is this, that heart means the very core of one's being, the center without which there is nothing whatever. Questioner: how is the mind to dive into the heart? Maharshi: the mind now sees itself diversified as the universe. If the diversity is not manifest, it remains in its own essence. That is the heart. Entering the heart means remaining without distractions. The heart is the only reality. The mind is only a transient phase. To remain as oneself is to enter the heart. Self-surrender is the same as self-knowledge, and either of them implies self-control. Surrender can take effect only when it is done with full knowledge as to what real surrender means. Such knowledge comes after inquiry and reflection and ends invariably in self-surrender. Surrender is to give oneself up to the original cause of one's being. Do not delude yourself by imagining such a source to be some God outside of you. One source is within oneself. Give yourself up to it. That means you should seek the source and merge in it.
Mind is a wonderful force inherent in the self. That which rises in this body as I is the mind. If the mind, which is the instrument of knowledge and is the basis of all activity, subsides, the perception of the world as an objective reality ceases. Investigate what the mind is, and it will disappear. There is no such thing as mind apart from thought. There is no use removing doubts. If we clear one doubt, another arises, and there will be no end of doubts. All doubts will cease only when the doubter and his source have been found. Seek for the source of the doubter, and you will find that he is really non-existent. Doubter ceasing, doubts will cease. When the mind gets absorbed in the heart, the ego I, which is the center of the multitude of thoughts, vanishes, and pure consciousness, or the self, which subsists during all the states of the mind, alone remains resplendent. It is this state, where there is not the slightest trace of the I thought, that is the true being of oneself. It is the undifferentiated light of pure consciousness into which the reflected light of the mind is completely absorbed.
There are neither good nor bad qualities in the self. The self is free from all quality. If there is unity, there will also be duality. The numeral 1 gives rise to other numbers. The truth is neither 1 nor 2. It is as it is. A visitor asked, when an endeavor is made to lead the right life and to concentrate thought on the self, there is often a downfall and break. What is to be done? Ramana replied, it will come all right in the end. There is the steady impulse of your determination that sets you on your feet again after every downfall and breakdown. Gradually the obstacles are all overcome and your current becomes stronger. Everything comes right in the end. Steady determination is what is required. It is no doubt said in some books that one should go on cultivating one good quality after another, and thus prepare for liberation. But for those who follow the path of self-inquiry, their effort is itself quite enough for acquiring all good qualities. They need not do anything else. Questioner, how is one to realize the self? Maharshi, by overcoming mental habits. Questioner, how to overcome the mental habits? Maharshi, by realizing the self. Questioner, that is a vicious circle. Maharshi, it is the ego which raises such difficulties, creating obstacles, and then suffers from the perplexity of apparent paradoxes. Find out who makes the inquiries, and the self will be found.
I think there are some people who say you have to be prepared for the Ramana's teaching. And if you're not ready, you've got to do all sorts of other things to prepare yourself. But my understanding is that Ramana Maharshi never said to any of his inquirers, you're not ready to see who you are, go away and get yourself sorted out as a human being, go in for psychotherapy, and so forth. He never, to my knowledge, and I've read everything available in English about him and by him, he never said, you aren't ready. I think everyone is ready, but we pretend we aren't ready. And if you say, well, I've got to do all sorts of things before I am in a position to see who I am, I say that's never ending. And if I had delayed till Douglas was sorted out, when I delayed having a look to see who I am, until I was thoroughly prepared, I would still at 87 be waiting.